Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. In this video we're going to take a look at an interesting knife. This is the Benchmade 928 Proxy, designed by the now late Warren Osborne, who many of you might know his designs, such as the Benchmade 940, a very iconic design for knife lovers everywhere. So we're going to take a look at the Proxy here. This is going to be an interesting review for me. I typically only buy knives that I really like and I share on the channel. Since there are kind of a few firsts here for Benchmade, I felt the need to really grab it and check it out. And full disclosure, I don't really like the knife, so but I do want to give it a fair shake, and there are a few key points I do want to talk about in this video, but this is going to differ from most of my videos where I'm not completely enthused about the knife in front of me here. So let's go through the specs, overall impressions, and details. First, this is what it ships with. A newer style box from Benchmade, Benchmade cloth. There's probably some type of warranty stuff in there. Anyways, so let's look at the specs real quick, and I'm going to reference this knife, the Zero Tolerance 0562 CF throughout. Camera angle's a bit deceiving here, but let's go butt to butt. So anyway, so we'll go through the specs. I'm going to reference the 0562 throughout the video since it is in the same price point. And I do see it as a comparable option from ZT. So the blade length on the 928 here is about 3.87 inches. Handle length is 5.09, giving us an overall of 8.85 inches. Now the handle thickness is just about 0.5 inches, so half an inch thick, and it does weigh in at 4.86 ounces. So you know, pretty good in terms of weight and so forth. There are some good specs on this knife. Blade steel is 20 CV, which is a comparable to M390, so CPM 20 CV. It does use thrust bearings, so they're bearings on washers. It does have a stainless steel lock insert. It is a flipper, so there are a number of firsts here for this Benchmade. Alright, so I kind of shared my overall impressions a little bit. There are definitely some things that I don't like on this knife, but I did sit down with someone who I would consider to be a Benchmade's end user, or the customer that Benchmade targets with the majority of their offerings. So we'll talk about that in a little bit here, but let's just go into the details on this particular knife, and then I'll bring up kind of the other points that I want to talk about. So alright. So we've got this drop point here, again 20 CV, has a kind of perhaps a stonewash or a media blast, but it's a kind of a darkened finish here. Should hide wear fairly well. Right off the bat, one of the things that I dislike here is this forward sharpening choil. There's a lot of wasted real estate right in this region here that could have been employed. Here on the other side we do have the Osborne logo, 20 CV, and then since this was one of the first 1000, it gets that rather unattractive billboard on this side of the blade. Not really a fan of that either. I mean, if it's one of the first 10, then yeah, slap it on there, we'll call it a collector's piece, but the first 1000, I really don't care. So that's that. Alright, here is the flipper tab. Interesting shape. I haven't seen this particular shape on any other knives that I can think of, but it does function quite well. Comfortable, no hot spots on the flipper tab, no real need for jimping. Flips nice and hard. You do get a good amount of purchase and leverage. So, fairly well done. The thumb studs also work, and they also function as the blade stops here at the top of the frame. So let me show you guys the thumb studs real quick. So we do have those. There is a stainless steel lock insert on this knife. It is a hexagonal shape. I believe you can rotate this one if the lockup gets a little too late, or potentially you can change the lockup position by rotating this. The lock bar is raised a little bit on this side, easier to access. Is a little bit of lock stick. So there's that. Despite being a stainless steel lock insert, you do have the standard Benchmade clip that looks like what it looks like, you guys know. And then this side is definitely a Media Blast here, so kind of like a Chris Reeve almost on the titanium. This side is obviously G10 with some fairly decent contouring, and then it does wrap around. It's one solid piece, and that creates the backspacer, so similar to a Strider and potentially some other ones. Pocket clip can go left and right hand carry, tip down, which tip up carry, which I do prefer, so that's good. Torx head screws, Ergos, pretty good. I mean, it is obviously a larger knife here, so it feels pretty good in the hand, no jimping up top. And with that large portion of unsharpened here, you do have a kind of a usable choke on this knife, so you can really get up on it if you want to for maximum control or kind of fine detail work. So, but the overall shape is fairly unattractive to me. And a couple things I want to talk about. First and foremost, I am a knife enthusiast. I look at knives, the way that they're built, the materials they use, the design elements, the aesthetics, the ergos, the functionality. I am not a normal knife consumer compared to the number of knives sold versus what they use them for. I'm kind of a specialist, as many of you watching are. And a lot of things I dislike on this knife are things that I like on this knife. No wasted space here on the choil, no lock stick. The ZT here feels smoother. It feels more precise. In terms of the action, the pocket clip I don't particularly love deep carry, but this one's executed very, very well. Also has much better blade to handle ratio as compared to the Benchmade here. So aesthetically, it's a Rick Hinder design. It's quite attractive in my mind compared to this one. So those are kind of my qualms as a knife enthusiast. Now, the reason that I bring that up is Benchmade has a very unique market position. If you go into any sporting goods store or Cabela's or Dick's or any of those places, chances are you're going to find a decent selection of Benchmade knives. You'll have Gerber's on one side and some other crappy knives, and then you'll have Benchmades. So Benchmade has a very unique market position in that they have a massive number of retailers across the United States. So when your average Joe goes into his gun shop or gun range or sporting goods store, and they ask the guy behind the counter, "Hey, I'm looking for a knife, what should I get?" And they're not afraid to spend a little bit of money, 9 times out of 10 they're probably going to be pointed towards a Benchmade. So Benchmade's marketing power and selling power is tremendous as compared to, let's say, a brand like ZT, where you may or may not find them in a few specialty shops, but they're very infrequent as compared to Benchmade's. So Benchmade's core consumer really is going to be kind of the infrequent purchaser who walks in and buys something off the shelf simply due to their market presence, market power, especially when they're put next to knives like Gerber's, which are pieces of crap. So their end consumer isn't necessarily the same as with ZT, where they're trying to get the real knife enthusiasts who want very fine work and specific features. So what I did with this particular knife is I actually went down, I have a coworker who's a gun enthusiast who carries a Benchmade. He carries a Barrage, Tonto, Serrations, assisted opening, has the terrible Benchmade black coating that's been scratched to crap. But he really likes the knife, and he's a hunter and he's a gun enthusiast. So I handed him this knife and I asked him what he liked about it versus me as the knife enthusiast. I gave him no input. I wanted kind of a pure response from what I would consider to be Benchmade's end consumer which is the guy who walks into the gun shop and ends up buying a decent quality knife, i.e. a Benchmade. So some of the things that he told me that he liked about the knife, for one, he liked the kind of the multicolored handle, as he called it. He also liked that he could really choke upon the knife. So while I hate this kind of large unsharpened portion here with, I don't know, a half-done choil, he really liked it because he said he could get up and do some fine work, or as he described it, if he needed to basically pry bullets out of boards or walls or trees, or staples out of things, he was looking at this as a pry tool. He said that he could get a nice grip up on it and he could pry with it much easier. So not something that I would consider doing with one of my knives, you know, specific tools, specific tasks, but that was at the forefront of his mind as someone who was not a knife enthusiast. He also said that it felt good in the hand. He liked the little bit of heft that it had to it. He liked the longer handle for better purchase. You know, he didn't, the slight lock stick didn't even come up on his radar. He made no mention of the blade shape, or the finish on the blade, or he didn't ask what type of steel it was. So he also mentioned that if he had to, he could probably skin something with this knife, or, you know, dress an elk, what have you, since he is a hunter. So those were the kind of the thoughts at the front of his mind. And I think he is a better representation of Benchmade's end user or consumer as opposed to me as a specific knife enthusiast. So while this knife fails for me as a knife enthusiast, it really did excel for him as a one knife user, gun enthusiast. So hopefully that made sense, but really two different types of markets essentially. Obviously the enthusiast market is tremendously smaller than people looking for a decent pocket knife with utility. So anyways, I wanted to bring that up because I really don't think that Benchmade, while they might have kind of taken a stab at the enthusiast market by employing, you know, flipper and bearings and a stainless steel lock insert and all of that, I think they missed the mark because that's not who their core consumer is. So anyways, a lot of market and market segmentation and end user and perceived audience in this video, but I felt that this knife deserved kind of a fair shake, and I think that's the way to approach it. So while I'm definitely not going to be keeping this one because there are a lot of features that I don't like, I have to tell you guys that it is well executed. Everything that they intended to do, they did well on this knife. You know, good blade steel, good ergos. If you're going to be a one knife type of guy and you're not really concerned about all, you know, the details that I am, like on the CT here, this knife would serve you tremendously well. So anyways, let me know what you guys think. Do you think that Benchmade really gears towards those infrequent knife purchases at gun shops because they have that sheer marketing power or product placement power, or do you think this is an enthusiast knife? Let me know what you guys think in the description box below. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. That's my take on the Benchmade 928 Proxy, designed either in mind or by the late and great Warren Osborne. So certainly a loss to the knife community. The 940 will forever be one of my absolute favorite designs. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate you taking the time. Give me a thumbs up if you liked the video. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed. And again, share your opinions in the description box below. Take care.